Alright, hello. So, let's make a jacket for Max. I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible. This style of jacket isn't the easiest one to make, but it should be relatively easy. So, we start out by mopping the back using our patron. Just getting nice and easy, getting the basic shape of the back right, and then we're gonna wrap it around him to the front. The front is the tricky part, but we'll get there later. So just get the overall shape right, have enough vertices, make it look like it fits him. Doesn't need to be perfect, we'll fix it later. Okay, so what we want to do here is make sure we have the basic shape for the arms, like where the seam would be in the actual cloth. Make it as round as possible and fitting, so that when we end up making the sleeves, it actually works well with the geometry and it makes sense in terms of how the actual jacket would be made in real life. This will help us both in the animation once we actually pose the model, and also it's going to be easier to separate the sleeves so we can work with them without messing the rest of the jacket, and we can connect them later. Alright, so now we've reached the front and it's time for the hard part. So let's get this thing out of the way. Make the shoulders and the neck as fitting as possible. I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but it's better if it looks good. So let's figure out this front flap thing, because it's actually pretty weird. I've been trying it a couple of times. It's a little tricky to get right, especially the way it wraps and folds. The zipper is kind of weird, but it's just a couple of basic principles. Once you realize them, it will work. So let's connect the main jacket so that we have like a sleeveless vest going on, and then let's start working on the flaps. So we're going to select this line here, extrude it out, and notice that the flap connects to the neck exactly. So when the triangles meet is where the neck and the flap connect. So we're going to, I'm just making sure everything looks as round as possible so we don't have that much cleanup later. Okay, so we're getting the flaps. Gonna extrude this out, make it straight. And just to make straight the vertices you have selected, you just click the axis. So let's say Z axis or Y axis, S for size, and then click 0 on the numpad, and we'll just make them straight. Essentially put them at the same exact axis. Okay, so let's make the flap. This is actually the side that's going to be covered by the other side. So try and get this right. It's kind of tricky to make it look like the real thing without messing up the geometry too much. But with a little bit of finessing, we can get it to look pretty good, and then we can save it more with subdivisions later. So just make sure it's nice and straight. Looks about right. Now let's go on the other side. Same principle. We extrude from the neck and down. Put it on the same axis so it's flat. And then we need to cover up until that line, which is the zipper essentially, which we're going to add later once the posing and all that stuff is correct. So try and make this overlapping flap now without interacting with the geometry underneath. We don't want geometry to just go through each other. And let's raise the neck and get ready for the flap on the neck. This is the easiest part. When we make it thicker for printing, it's going to be a little bit harder later, but now this is easy. So we just make it look good. Just eyeball it. Doesn't need to be perfect. Nothing's perfect when we wear it anyway. Okay, so let's just get this straight. Make it look like an actual jacket. Okay. Just making sure it's nice and round. You can spend as much time as you want on this. It's really up to you. I just want to make it look as clean as possible without adding more geometry for now. Okay, so I think this looks about right for the neck. It almost looks like an actual jacket. Cool. Now the flap thing. We're gonna make a triangle here, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm not sure how else we would do it without adding it later as a different part, which I don't want to do. So we're gonna make a couple of triangles. We're gonna fold them over. It's gonna get the basic look right. It might mess up our subdivision later, but we can fix it. We can fix it. Just make sure this triangle is bigger and it's actually longer, because it folds at a lower point than the upper one does. This is just how the jacket works in real life. I've been looking at mine for quite some time to actually figure out exactly how it folds. It's a weird style of jacket, and I couldn't find the patron with it unfolded, so we're gonna have to like a little bit eyeball it and figure it out. In the end, it's gonna look good. Remember, this is going to be for a 3D printable statue, miniature type thing, so it doesn't really matter for rigging and stuff like that. We don't want it for a video game or an animation. We just want it to look good enough so that when it prints at a smaller size or even at a big statue size, that it looks good. Okay, so just get it out of the way, make sure it looks fine. Okay, this looks acceptable for now. So let's work on the sleeves now. Now would be the perfect time. Okay, nice. Just make it a little bit wider. Procrastinating, I know. Just gotta do it perfect. Okay, this looks better. Once we make it thicker, it'll look excellent. Okay, so sleeve time. Let's go. Pick one sleeve, one side, doesn't matter which. Make sure it's nice and round. Select the whole thing and just keep extruding and scaling up and down with S, rotating it with R. Make sure it fits. Add a little bit more geometry on where it would bend, like for moving arms, where the seams would be, so that when we animate it to pose it, the geometry there can look better without stretching too much. So here on the elbow, we're gonna add like 3 or 4 extrusions, making it easier to bend without ripping the geometry apart and making it look awful. So we're basically gonna do this, and once this arm is nice and ready, we're gonna do something pretty cool and simple so that we don't have to work on this on the other side. Because remember, we can't mirror this now because the front of the jacket is asymmetrical. So if we mirror it to get the other sleeve, it will ruin the chest. So we select this vertice, this where the seam would be, we click V and this separates the vertices. Now we can select it with L, duplicate it, and mirror it with Control M, and then middle mouse button to select on which axis it'll get mirrored at, and then we're set up. We have the other sleeve, we just put it in place roughly, doesn't matter, we're gonna connect it later. But now we have two sleeves. We're gonna cut off one of the sleeves in half later for the jacket, but for now this is good. So duplicate it, have a backup, and let's start working on this. We need to make this thick now, because if we print it like this, it basically has no depth and it will not print. So we need to make the jacket thick. So how do we make it thick? Well, you can select all the jacket and extrude it inward, but if we do it now with all the flaps, it's gonna be bad. So I'm gonna select only the parts without the flaps and extrude them inwards. Now sometimes when you extrude from a plane, it does this, which is not what you want. Like, it makes the gap, it doesn't make it a whole thing. It's like, I don't know why it happens. It doesn't happen always. So we click up there on faces and click solidify. This makes it just thick, and then you can move it and scale it up properly so that it looks right. Now we do this separately for the flaps. Again, solidify, not extrude. And there we go. Basically the jacket is now thick. I'm going to do the same thing on the neck, on the flap on the neck, and it's basically ready. We're going to do the same thing for the arms before we connect them. And the reason we're going to do it before we connect them is so that we can make it harmoniously thick. Like, because if you do this on the sleeves on this angle, once you try and scale it down, it's not going to be proportional. It's going to go all over the place, and geometry is going to interfere with each other. So we're going to do this on the sleeves as a separate mesh and have it perpendicular so that we can extrude it properly. Right. And we are good. That's the arms done with. Now we connect the arms. So put them in place as close as possible, have a little gap, and then we go to edit mode. We select the edges or the vertices, whichever one you prefer, and we start connecting every little edge with the corresponding one on the jacket. This is going to create just the proper amount of geometry to make it look like it's actually sewn on there when we subdivide and sculpt it. So it's gonna look pretty good. So here you can see like edge fill. You want to select the edges opposite each other one at a time, and then click F, and it will fill the thing, the empty space, and connect all the vertices so it's actually properly connected, no gaps, which is what we want. And then we're going to go inside the model and do the same thing from the inside, so it's connected on both sides, because remember, it's thick now, it's not just one plane, it has dimensions. So we do the exact same thing on the inside. I'm going to skip it, no reason. So okay, so once we are done with that, we want to subdivide by selecting all faces, right click subdivide before we add the modifier subdivision, because it's going to ruin all the flaps if we do it after. So subdivide with right click and selecting all the faces like three times, and then do the modifier subdivision. Then we're going to take the smooth brush from sculpt mode and just make it smooth. Here you can see how cool it looks on the seam, on the sleeves. It actually looks like it was sewn on, and we didn't have to do extra work on that, which is pretty cool. So once we make it like smooth enough, looks like an actual thing, we are going to use the move brush and just make it fit the form of Max as closely as possible. Then we're going to select Max's model and just get all the geometry out of the way. He's not that buff anyway. Okay, so we're ready. Let's add the armature on the human body. And the human body is just a body I made like some time ago from another tutorial. It doesn't really matter. You can find human bodies anywhere for free. So just find one you like and just use it as a base. So I have this one. So now we have the armature, human meta rig, and scale it and put all the bones in the right spots. This is going to take some time for the fingers and stuff like that, but it's not hard. You just move it around. The important part is on the right side, viewport display, down with that human thing, when you select the armature, and click on in front so you can always see it. Alright, once we're done with that, we are going to select the mesh that we want to rig, then shift select the armature, then right click and parent with automatic weights. This is going to do it automatically for you. Most of the time it's gonna be good. So it basically tells which part of the geometry to move when we move the armature. So once we do that, it might take some time depending on how detailed your human model is. But once it's done, hopefully it doesn't crash, Once it's done, you see that we can move around with pose mode, which is cool. So now, how we make the jacket follow our mesh. So we select the jacket, we shift select the armature, and we parent this time with empty groups, and then we select the mesh, shift select the jacket, and then on the top left corner we select the mode, we go to weight paint, and we click on weights, transfer weights, and then all the way down at the bottom we hit the little tab and switch this one to name, by name. Now if everything goes as planned, most of the time it does, the jacket will move with the armature. Now you see the geometry is getting kind of funky there, but with a nice little smooth brush it's gonna be back to perfect. So once we get the final pose, we're gonna fix it. This isn't the final pose, so I'm gonna undo. And basically, yeah, that's it for now. This is the first part. Join me on the second part where we make all the detail of the jacket, decide on the pose, and add the shoulder pad as well. So, thanks for watching. Join me next time. Bye.